Hey guys, it's Adam. I'm here in the shop. We're doing the AJE front suspension. We did coilovers on this kit and putting a Coyote in it. Um, Getting started. We've actually already taken the car apart and got it pretty well ready. I got the K-member with the car now. It's halfway bolted up. So I'm going to stop at this process and kind of give you some run through what we've done. We've completed this job. Probably, honestly, we pulled the engine yesterday at about 7 o'clock in the morning. We completed at probably 9:30, 10 o'clock. We went to lunch, came back from lunch, we undid all the factory suspension, and then we started doing the removal of the factory steel. And honestly, that's probably one of the hardest parts of the whole job. The other part would be understanding the instructions, because it's not very straightforward. It's kind of a broad range of it covers a bunch of different years on cars, so some of it gets kind of confusing for people. This will be for the 69 and 70 install. I got a 70 Mach 1 here I'm working on. In my personal car, we're getting ready to put a Coyote in. Sold the 393 yesterday. All right, this was the Colt 65 kit with the coilovers. There's some odds and parts. We've got different motor mounts and stuff. Flaming River manual rack bump steer kit, and then the like I said, the Viking coilovers, that kind of stuff. You can kind of see I've got this side temporary together for now. Got my wheel on there. Everybody always complains it's not centered in the wheel well, but it is. But I think that's because of the fact the way the instructions are written. So I'm going to take you from the basis. So obviously you need to remove your engine, get your gearbox here out of the way. Get that out of the way. Get all your front suspension out of the way. Okay, that'll all be on bolt. So unbolt all that stuff. You're going to take the inner structure out of the towers. That's this right here. So you can see all the places that I drilled out for drilling all the spot welds. Okay. See them there. Refer back to this part whenever you get ready to try to find these spot welds, because they're all in the same place. Or dang close, as long as your car is original. This car was original metal. Same way on the bottom. See the holes? So that's all the places that it was spot welded. You know, obviously this is the factory suspension. This would be the passenger side of the car, the right side of the car. So there you go. So just take note of all of those. Okay, the driver's side of the car would be the same. Here it is. Here's the driver's side of the car. So, see all the holes there. Same way on the bottom. See where I drilled them all out. There's all your spot welds. The way I do it, like if I have my tech here helping me and that kind of stuff, is I go through with a white paint marker, like you see on the floor right there, and I dot all the holes for him so he can make sure to hit them with a center punch and drill them out. He missed a few of them, but it's not a big deal. We got them out. Whenever you do it, if you got a spot weld tool, it'll come out a little bit cleaner than this. You can see where he drilled a little deep, but we use a stepper bit. Generally in this, we use like a Matco stepper bit setup. And then we come back with like a flat DeWalt or something like that, cobalt bit. They come back over the top of it. But, you know, if you're using a spot weld tool, you can do that as well. Once you get all that off, because that wraps from here all the way around and up underneath to here, this section of the frame. Once you get all that off and out of the way, the instructions say to center hole between here and there, and then take and center mark it. Well, we did that. The problem with it is whenever you do that, it does not actually line up with the center. You'll see my reference mark there. That's what AJE says is 4 inches, because it's 8 inches from this hole to this hole on the K-member, okay? So center of that is 4 inches here, and then there's 4 inches, or there's the center of those two holes up top in the stock frame rail. problem with that is that's actually wrong for this wheelbase of car. I don't know why or how or why that's different in the instructions. And I think this is one of those things that it pertains to several different cars. Like maybe it pertains to the 64 through 67s or something, maybe, or 68s I meant. But the 69s and 70s will be the same way. And you know, 67, 68s maybe as well. I haven't done one of those done one of these kits on one of those cars yet, but I'm sure I will soon. So what I ended up doing is there's a factory bolt hole in the rear. Okay, so if we turn this wheel back around, and obviously I'll be making more videos and stuff. We turn that, there's a factory hole here that actually created, it was a brace, a factory brace from frame rail to frame rail that went back here, just a long tubular bar that came in and attached to these points. So these bolts originally, if I can find one, I think I got one in my box over here. So you know that you're referencing the right bolts to bolt this thing in, is these. So if you see that bolt, see how it's got a tapered head on it, stuff for centering. So these bolts here are the ones that secure that factory brace. Whenever you have that whenever you got that location, it's a 1/2 inch bolt. That'll be what actually goes in this rear on both sides to kind of get you somewhat aligned up to get your suspension correctly. Now, whenever we put the bolt in this hole on both sides, of course I had some different bolts, so I made them lock washers and everything else just to hold it. Whenever I got that bolt in place, I noticed that whenever I pulled a dimension again on the factory style length of the car for wheelbase, it actually worked out good. Now before, wheelbase was off. So, you know, if you didn't measure your wheelbase to begin with and you're in this phase and you're like, crap, forgot to do it, it's not a big deal. Use that 1/2 inch bolt hole and line up that suspension, the AJE suspension for you, and then you'll be able to move from that point forward. Now you'll notice that on these K-members, the bolts are slotted. So you see the hole here, it's elongated and slotted, right? Well, that elongated and slotted looks like it's there so you can shift the K-member from side to side in case your alignment stuff is off. Okay, so now we got that. Essentially, we should have the K-member, you know, secured underneath the car, kind of like I've got it. You take your 1/2 inch drill bit. Once you get everything centered, you center punch your hole, and you drill up through and go through both sides of the frame rail. Okay, now, if your frame rail is anything like mine, it had years of dirt and mud and everything else on top of it. So you'll come through that and come through the top side, okay? Once you get the top side done, you get all this, and then what I did was I went in with a scraper. You know what I mean? You see my little scraper down there? Went in my scraper and I knocked all that stuff out. Remember, you gotta have it clean to get a good weld. So you take and you clean out this whole area. I use my little Milwaukee vacuum over there. Vacuumed out this top side up here, okay? So we vacuumed out this top side, get it all clean, free of rust and stuff, and then this is where we drill in the piece that keeps you from crushing your frame. Okay, AJE, if you ordered a kit, sends you a bunch of these. Sends you 4 of them. Okay, these sleeves right here will be put down in the frame, and which I'll probably show you later on in this video. But these will be put in the frame like so. So what you do is you make sure your drill's straight up and down and centered, and you take and you drill a straight hole from here all the way through the top of this frame, okay? And I moved it, I pretty much hit the center of the frame rail because I'm kind of OCD and I want everything to be perfect. So hit the center of the frame rail. You'll also see here where I used a self-tapper. I ran it through the AJE suspension and the frame to keep things from moving, because they'll do that. Start getting the drill bit in there, start walking, the drill bit will start walking, and then your hole won't line up straight all the way through. So to stop that, I had taken and run a self-tapper up in here in the frame. It was a cheat from a long time ago, but you run this up through the frame, and then it won't allow it to walk anymore. Whenever we get everything done, obviously you take your self-tapper out. You can take and buzz a spot on that and then weld the hole back up and do the same in your frame, buzz everything flat. You'll never know it existed, but it's good for keeping it from moving. So anyways, back to this piece, the crush sleeve. the piece that keeps the frame from crushing anyway. So once you get your 1/2 inch hole drilled up and through, right, through the top, you're going to take and you're going to get a 3/4 inch bit and then drill out the top. You're just going to come in here and then drill downward, okay? Whenever you get that drilled downward, once again, I use a hyper bit from Matco. Things are expensive, but they're worth their weight in gold. This is a 3/4 inch step bit. And what I do is I take and drill downward through there, and then this sleeve, whenever you get it good, it'll drop down in there. It drops down in there, bam, it's the bottom of the frame. Now we got this piece in the middle, so you can't collapse that frame. So it creates a good rigid structure. That's good. After you do that, I come back in the top of this, and then up underneath this washer right here, I weld it all the way around this top side. You know, make sure you don't get the weld into the hole, obviously, because the hole's, you know, just big enough to let the bolt come through. So, you know, if you do, you can always take and come back through the bottom of it, which I did too, just to make sure it's clear. Come back to the bottom of it with a 1/2 inch drill bit and bam, pop right up through the top where you welded. You'll be good to go. You drop your bolt in, and then that one's secure. Now I'm doing the same thing for the rest of them. So what I'm doing is I'm going to take this same idea on that side, right? And then I'm going to get that side done, weld it up, and then I'm going to drop the whole subframe and undo my strut and stuff, and then I'm going to do these rear bolts and then do the same way. So 1/2 inch bit all the way up through, and then you're going to drop this in, or 3/4 inch hole, drop this in, weld the top, and then at that point I'm going to take and come back through here while I've got it down, and I'm going to shave the front side of my sway bar mount. Test fitting last night, it looks like my sway bar, my grab-a-lang sway bar that's right there, actually looks like it's going to fit. It'd be really cool if it does. You know, I like sway bars from the cars. Makes them feel more stable, gives a better road experience, you know, driving, that kind of stuff. So I'm going to come through here and I'm going to cut all this out, okay? And then what we're going to do is, somebody else previously welded these in, you know, and they look like crap, but we're going to cut all this stuff out, and I'm going to come back through here and I'm going to fix the corner of the frame that did a hack job on, and fix all this stuff with a layer of metal, and then make it all one piece where it's all uniform and it won't come back apart, and keep some flex out of the car too. Anyways, I hope that explains some stuff. I'll tune back in here in a minute and give you like a finished product type thing on this section of it. I'll probably show you how to start assembling the suspension, how to know what's left and right, and that kind of stuff, as well as we're going through it. So what I'll do is I'll disassemble the front suspension all the way. I'll give you some tips on how to get things to work. A lot of people get upset with AJE, with their fitment and stuff like that, but you got to remember that these things, you know, whenever you weld on these things, it actually pulls. If you weld on this side of this piece of metal, it's going to pull the tab. Well, on this side of this piece of metal, it's going to pull the tab that way. It's the way it works. There's nothing around it. So they could have a perfect piece that fits in here, bolts in and does it, and as it cools, it's going to draw back in and change the dimensions. People complain about this all the time, and trust me, BMR or anybody else, they all have the same thing. We install all the new Mustangs, Camaros, anything like that. We put tubular K members, we do all that stuff. We deal with this stuff all the time. A lot of people think that the products just aren't good. Really and honestly, it's just because they don't have dealing with aftermarket products. It's not a factory product. This ain't made on a multi-million-dollar facility and everything else, and it's CNC machined and all this kind of stuff. These parts are jigged up in-house and then, you know, welded together and fabricated, and you know, you get them to the best of their abilities. What I can tell you is essentially, and really one good hard working day, if the engine was out, I'd have this whole suspension done. So people that think it's this terrible feat to get this thing done, it's really not. You just have to know what you're doing. And you know, the shops like I've had and stuff in the past, this is not that big of a job. It may seem like it to a lot of people. The only way that this job would become a really big job is if the factory on your car are completely rotted out. And if they're rotted out, then obviously this kind of suspension that bolts through the frame, you know, is not going to work very well for you. That's going to become an issue, you know. So like if it was all like this, then there's no way I would have to take and cut all this out and then redo it, or take the whole frame rail out in the box and then put it all back together, a new piece of metal, and then come back through it. And if that's the case, it can be. But as far as the AJE is concerned, honestly, it's pretty straightforward. And Instructions make it really difficult to understand. They do. And I can see where people get frustrated and don't understand it and don't know how to do the job. I get it. But realistically on the 70, it was pretty straightforward. Once we figured out where the center line of the wheel needed to be, the instructions were wrong on that in the way they told us to do it. So that's why I wanted to give this video for 6970 install. And like I said, it may be different between the 68, 67, and then obviously they're back. They changed the body, or changed the frame area in the front. The 64.5 through 66. Anyways, as I do one of those, obviously I'll post that as well. But that gets you to this step forward where we're at now. I'm gonna get off here and I'm gonna pull everything down, clean everything up. Shoot some primer and some paint and some stuff, get some stuff cleaned up, and I'm gonna get everything bolted back together. And I'll show you a finished product that came over installed, and then I'll show you how to install it, the control arms and stuff like that as we go forward. Thank you. Make sure to subscribe.